I have lost 125 pounds and kept it off for well over a decade.
You're about to hear from Cindy Newland, someone who has an incredibly inspiring story. She lost a lot of weight after suffering a back injury and successfully managed to turn her life around. But it wasn't an easy journey.
It was a really humbling and humiliating experience, and it led me to recognize that I had brought all of it on myself. I was taking laxatives to try to lose weight. I was the grapefruit diet, the Atkins diet, Weight Watchers, you name it. I did it. I tried it. It was a terrible way to treat my body.
We spoke about the mindset strategies she used to lose weight, how she managed motivation, and about how losing weight totally changed the trajectory of her life.
I knew that I was going to have to make a different kind of a change, and I changed my mind. It was, I'm going to eat this way forever. But it's those small changes of how am I going to nourish myself today? What's the small habit that I can build today that's going to get me to where I want to be later? I couldn't imagine losing 125 pounds. I'd never done it before. And I was at the gym so much, they asked me if I wanted to become an instructor and a personal trainer and train for that. And I said, you bet I do.
Cindy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for sparing your time to come and have a chat with me, because I know our chat today will be helpful for a lot of our listeners. And for those who don't know anything about you, if you could just introduce yourself, give us a bit of your backstory, because I know we have a lot to chat about, and we'll see how much we can get through.
Sure. Yeah. So my background is that I have lost 125 pounds and kept it off for well over a decade. And that initially started because I had a back injury that left me immobile for more than a month. And I had to have family and friends come in and take care of me. And it was a really humbling and humiliating experience. And it led me to recognize that I had brought all of it on myself, from being a couch potato and from overeating just horrifically. And so I started to recognize that I needed to make some changes, or it was going to be downhill from there. So I slowly but surely made it to the gym and started working out. And at that time, the Biggest Loser was on TV. And, I wasn't losing 15 pounds a week, and I just couldn't recognize why that wasn't happening. So I realized I needed to start changing what I was eating. And I didn't want to diet because dieting had gotten me to that place of being morbidly obese. So I recognized that I wasn't going to eliminate anything from my diet at that point. I was going to nourish myself instead. So slowly but surely, I started making those lifestyle changes, and it was almost 4 years to get off the 125 pounds, but I've kept it off. And I was at the gym so much, they asked me if I wanted to become an instructor and a personal trainer and train for that. And I said, you bet I do. So that changed my career. It changed my life. And I'm grateful for that back injury, even though it was horrible at the moment.
Wow. So, and then if we go to today, what are you up to today in terms of personal, professional life?
Yeah. So today I own a blog, intentionallyeat.com, where I have vegan recipes, plant-based recipes, because that is the type of diet that I enjoy now. And I teach people how to nourish their bodies and feel comfortable in the kitchen.
Amazing. I love this point. And actually, I think maybe let's just chat about it now. So, the approach that you've said there is, well, actually, I'd like to jump into you saying about that dieting actually got you to that position in the first place. Can you just expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was probably, as we know with statistics now, I was a typical teenager where, just to be very blunt, I was taking laxatives, right, to try to lose weight. I was the grapefruit diet, the Atkins diet, Weight Watchers, you name it. I did it, I tried it. And that was all through middle school, high school, and just binging then after that. So it was a terrible way to treat my body, and my metabolism has paid the price for it even to this day, right? So it takes a lot to overcome the damage that dieting does.
Absolutely. So this is something I see quite a lot as well, and I'm sure you do in that with people generally, whether it's a sport, an exercise context, whether it's just general daily life, there's a lot of harm that can be done through dieting or fad dieting. If you're not doing it correctly, you're not following the right principles, you're kind of buying into the I've got to lose loads and loads of weight in a very short time frame, and often it's just not sustainable, it's not realistic. But it sounds like actually you found a way to make it stick, and you were able to do this over a long period of time.
Exactly. And that was it. I knew that I was going to have to make a different kind of a change, and I changed my mind. It was, I'm going to eat this way forever. So I have to find a way to be able to eat this way forever. And that was what I tell clients now. It's, let's just focus on little things that we can do rather than what we're going to give up. What are we going to add into our diet? And so I encourage people to add fruits and vegetables into their diet. And an easy way to do that is to recommend that you add 8 a day. And when I say that, I'm not talking about 8 servings. I'm talking about just count 8 different fruits and vegetables. It could be a slice of a cucumber, a slice of a tomato, a baby carrot. If you just start to focus on that and train your mind on adding in rather than what you can't have, you're going to start to nourish your body. You're going to start to build cravings for that healthy food, and you're going to feel better about doing that. And really, if you focus on adding in 8 a day, you're going to be doing better than most people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess then the what you're almost doing there is stopping that really overwhelming sensation that can often happen when you feel when you're trying to do this. And at the start, it's like, how could I ever lose this much weight? Or how could I change my eating patterns because I'm already set in this way? And actually, if you start by just, as you say, kind of taking it back to the very basics and just adding in a very small amount at a time, suppose you're just trying to promote these healthy behaviors time and time again until they become more like habit.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Instead of, because when we focus on what we can't have, we just want it all the more, right? And so I could not say I'm never going to have cake again, I'm never going to have whatever again. The only thing that I gave up, and it's because I have such an addiction to it, I treat it like alcohol, is soda, is pop. um yeah, I'm so addicted to it. I gave it up and went back, and it was diet, it was sodium free, I don't care what kind it is, I will drink it. So yeah, that was the one thing. It's like, Lord help me never to drink this again. And thankfully it's been, 20 years and I haven't had one. But let me tell you, that craving still comes up like once a year. It's like, oh man, that sounds good. But so those things are going to happen, and we have to recognize that will occur. But it's those small changes of, how am I going to nourish myself today? What's the small habit that I can build today that's going to get me to where I want to be later? I couldn't imagine losing 125 pounds. I'd never done it before, right? You lose 10, you gain 15. That's the pattern that I was used to. So the only thing I could do was, you know what, for today, I'm going to focus on 8, and that's it. And eventually, when I hit a plateau, right, at about 100 pounds, I hit a plateau. And of course, I wanted to go check and make sure everything was fine with my body. And I had a doctor just tell me, just be glad you lost 100. And it's like, no, I'm working too hard, right? I've got more to go. I want to lose some more. So I recognized at that point, then I needed to start counting the calories, start focusing on the macros, seeing what I was really eating, how many calories, and becoming more aware on that end. So there is a timeline to things, I think, and it all depends on how many pounds you have to lose, or what your health goal is, right? As to how much you have to pay attention to the nitty gritty. Um, I didn't want to count calories because I had done that before. And that's what part of what I felt like had led me to being morbidly obese. Now I know better, right? It's for me, it's kind of like a money budget. I'm just budgeting. I'm just figuring out where I'm going to spend, quote unquote, my calories, my fat, my carbs, my proteins, those kind of things. So, but yes, to get back to it, it's those little habits that are eventually going to get you to your big goal.
Love it. And can I just ask there? So you said originally you felt like calorie counting kind of wasn't good for you, and it sounds like you probably changed your mindset, or at least you know better. I'd love to just find out a bit more about that because there's a whole range of opinions with calorie counting where for some people it's a really, really positive thing. And I actually love that analogy with, or the metaphor with budgeting, and it's like how you spend your money. But others, it is a really dangerous area, or at least it's very hard to really contextualize and get the right information from it. So, did your opinion really change over time then?
Uh, it did change over time because I learned more about macros and what things I really needed, not just the calorie, right? I could count calories. It could be a couple hundred calories from a potato chip and still stay within my caloric range, but that potato chip isn't going to nourish me. So the more knowledge I gathered, the more I decided, yes, counting calories is important for me. I can absolutely understand, though, for it being a trigger for some people, just like stepping on the scale could be a trigger for some people. So I always recommend you got to know yourself and what your triggers are, and what's healthy for you to do and what's not healthy for you to do, and stay away. If counting calories is going to trip you up, then don't do it, or at least don't do it for a period of time. And you can always check in once a month, count your calories, and just kind of see on a guideline as to where you are. But if it works for you, then count them every day. Budget them. Don't count them, budget them, right? Spend them before you eat them. Because boy, I made that mistake before, right? And you spend them, you eat, and then you're like, man, that so wasn't worth it. Why would I? Yeah. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that approach as well, and checking in once a month. Again, I use the finance analogy and say, well, at the start, when you're creating your spreadsheet or whatever and tracking your finances, might be helpful to do it every day for a week or two. And then when you get more comfortable, you know what foods you regularly eat, you know what makes you feel good, you can kind of dial that back a bit, check in
yeah,
once a month. And it's a nice way to do it.
exactly.
So you've had this personal experience, and as you mentioned, you managed to lose that weight, but over that four-year period.
Yes.
So that's a long time to do it. And I guess during that period, you probably had a lot of learning experiences. And your story is really relatable to loads of our listeners. So I was just wondering, do you have any big learning points or takeaways that you found along the way?
I think one of the main things is that what works for you in one season of life might not work the next season of life. And so you need to be able to flow, right? Just because I didn't count calories in the beginning doesn't mean I'm never going to count calories. We can't be so rigid. That's another diet mentality is, well, I've got to run 5 miles a day. Well, you know what if it's winter, you can't get out, or you've injured your knees or something? You can't let that derail you. You have to switch things up and find something else that's going to work. So I guess my one of the main things I learned was I can't be rigid. I can't be such a mindset of, well, this isn't working now, so I'm giving up. It's no, you know what? If that doesn't work now, then I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to do something different. That was one of my main things. And then also, it's just those. So I wrote a book called Small Bites, Big Results. And it's those small habits, just like we were talking about, those eating 8 a day. It's those small habits that are going to get us to our goals. And I had to recognize that I couldn't focus on being perfect. I had to focus on doing the best I could that day. So if I didn't get 8 that day, I wasn't going to beat myself up for it. I was just going to make sure I focused on getting 8 the next day. I'm going to set my workout clothes right next to the bed so that when I get up out of bed, I'm going to put them on. So that might be the best thing I do that day, right? I might not get outside to exercise, but I'm going to start that habit, that little small habit. When I first started exercising, I was morbidly obese. I did not want to go to the gym. I didn't want to be seen. So I would drive 10 miles down the road to a little park. And all I could do at that point, because of my back, was walk a block. I would drive 10 miles to walk a block because it was secluded and I felt comfortable and I didn't feel like I was being watched. So you have to know yourself. You have to start somewhere, even if it's walking one block or eating 8 bites of a vegetable and fruit a day. Those are the things I think I learned.
That's such an important point as well, which I think gets a lot of people in that they feel they have to be perfect. And I think there's two problems there. Firstly, is that that can stop them from even starting in the
Mm-hmm.
first place because they feel they might need a diet plan and an exercise plan planned perfectly. And then that feels overwhelming to even start. And then also, they get into this mindset, well, it's either all or nothing. And I guess you probably had that yourself or have had clients where it sounds like you managed it really well in that you don't just go, that's it, it's all done, I'm just going to eat whatever I like and throw it all in. It's actually just putting it into context and go, well, sometimes it happens. And I guess you just pick yourself and move on, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And one, quote unquote blown meal, whatever, doesn't mean you blow the day, right? There's always the next meal. So I think we have to be a lot more kind to ourselves and stop beating ourselves up for not being perfect. We're never going to be perfect. It's doing the best we can. And knowing, right? Being honest with ourselves if we're really doing the best that we can. So that's, I'm not saying, hey man, you're not feeling great today, go ahead and shove some food. I'm saying recognize you don't feel good today or whatever, and find a different way to work through that emotion rather than food. We just have to know ourselves. So we have to know if we have a tendency towards perfectionism, and we have to recognize, what am I going to do about that? How am I going to combat that when that perfection comes up? And we have to talk ourselves through it. We can't sit back. We have to be strong minded through this, right? It's not a 10-day diet. It's for life, always. So we have to figure out, how am I going to nourish my body for life? It's the same. I always come back to the budget. It's the same thing. It's not like I'm going to be, perfect with my money for a day, or a week. It's, hey, what are my big lifetime goals? Am I going to have some retirement? Am I going to have whatever? Am I going to pay off my house? You got to plan for it. So it's the same thing with our bodies. Do I want to be mobile when I'm 70s, right? How do I want to live out this life? And I want to be as healthy as possible for as long as possible. So we have to start thinking about that now.
So there's that, keeping the big goal in mind and some contextual picture that it's not just even this next year. You've got a
Right.
long time. And I suppose that helps with the motivation side of things as well. And as you say, it's not just a blown meal, because in the context of 5, 10, 20 years, that means nothing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a lot of senior clients. And so that kind of helps me recognize, yes, I want to be as healthy for as long as possible. They want to be healthy. That's why they're with me. And then they're also such an encouragement. I have 80-year-olds that are walking, and every single day, 5 miles a day, they're doing fantastic. So you also have to surround yourself with people who motivate you, right? Who aren't going to drag you down, but are going to lift you up and encourage you, and you help each other out. So if you need a gym buddy, then go get a gym buddy, someone to help motivate you.
Just a quick break to say, if you're enjoying this episode, then please give it a quick review on whatever platform you're listening on. It'll only take a moment, but it will help the podcast spread to more people who would benefit from hearing about Cindy's story. So now back to the podcast where we're talking about how to manage your diet with friends, family, and others who might not make it easy for you. And I guess there's a lot to be said there for family and relationships, in that it's so much harder if you don't have someone to support you, or, for example, your family members aren't helping and, for example, might be making it harder. How do you manage that with clients?
That is a tough one. There are a lot of women who make two meals, right? They'll make a meal for themselves and then a meal for their families. And I just encourage them to find some middle ground, because I have never seen that work for a long period of time. It's just not sustainable. So we just have to ask our loved ones to help and support us. We have to share what our goals are with them. If it's safe to do that, if they're not going to, drag you down. So, and if it's not possible for the ones that are close to you, then find someone that you can, right? Find someone at the gym or a walking buddy, something like that, that is going to encourage you, or listen to podcasts like this one that's going to uplift you, that's going to keep you motivated. You've got to find those motivations somewhere. And if you can't find a loved one who will do it for you, then you've got to take control and find what's going to help you.
I love that here, because it's so important. And I think surrounding yourself with those who have the same goals can make such a difference, not just in weight loss, but whatever walk of life really that you're
Exactly.
in. Now, you mentioned it before about your start with weight loss, your start with exercise, and how you did some walking at the very start. So do you think that exercise is essential for weight loss? Do you think it's important? Is it just part of the overall picture?
I don't think it's essential for weight loss. However, I think it's essential for health. So, the more, we know it, the more muscle we have, the more calories we burn, the better our metabolism. One thing that I found that was important for me was recognizing how hard I had to work out to burn the calories that I was eating. And at one point, it's not worth it, right? You're eating a Snickers bar and you're like, man, I got to run 5 miles to burn this because my metabolism is so pitiful. It's so not worth it. So if nothing else, in that context, it puts it into perspective how hard we have to work to burn off lousy calories that aren't nourishing us. So no, I don't think you have to do it, right? But it definitely helps, because the more you work out, the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn. They work together, right? They work together. And you just feel better, and you want to take better care of yourself. You want to eat better when you exercise. So I always encourage people to do it the way I did it: exercise first and then change your diet, because it just puts it into perspective, like I said, of wow, it takes this much to burn this much. Okay, I'm going to rein in the eating here.
And I think some people struggle with the concept of exercise and finding something that they either enjoy or stick to over the long term. How do you manage that?
I think it's the same thing as before. You got to go with the flow. So just because I was running half marathons before COVID hit, I'm not running them now, right? So things have changed. I'm now walking more. I'm strength training more. So I'm not doing the same things I was doing before, and I'm okay with that. We have to find what's going to work for us during that season. We can't be so hard that we can't ever change. So when I first had the back injury, not only did I go and walk that one block, I knew I had to get to the gym. And I started out with water aerobics because that's all I could do. I didn't even know if I was going to be able to lift my body out of the pool once I was wet, because, you're heavy, plus you're waterlogged, plus you're exhausted from working out. I didn't know if my muscles would do it. Um, am I doing water aerobics now? No. Right. So just because you're doing it in one season doesn't mean you're going to do it in every season. Find what you enjoy and do it for now, and find the habit. It's more just build the habit of movement and exercise and taking care of yourself than it is, I got to run 5 miles.
And I guess then that kind of ties in with if someone picks up an injury or they are ill or they're not enjoying it, is it just broadening your horizons a bit and saying, well, look, this isn't the only way or the only exercise you can do. Try something different, try a different class, do whatever. And actually, you don't have to run just because someone else runs.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you like to dance, then go dance. I mean, that's major calorie burning. If you like to garden, get out and do a really good garden, make it physical. There's all kinds of ways for movement to be incorporated into our lives. We don't have to go to the gym if that's going to turn someone off. You don't have to go there. Find somewhere, some way that you can exercise. Don't limit yourself.
I love it because that seems like a scary thing for a lot of people as well. They feel like they have to exercise a certain way, but
Yeah.
actually, it is more about just trying to find something you can stick to and enjoy. And you might not
Yeah.
enjoy it all the time. I guess it's fair to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say the hardest part's getting there, right? The hardest part is starting, is getting to the gym or whatever. And there were many days where I was like, okay, Lord, I do not want to go to the gym today. I don't. I need you to help me. I would pull into the parking lot and I would just talk to myself. I'd be like, okay, I'm here. I'm in the parking lot. I'm just going into the gym for 5 minutes. That's all I'm doing today because I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. And of course, when you get in there for 5 minutes, you're like, fine, I'm here. I'm going to stay. I'm going to work out. But it's those things. And some days I did just show up for 5 minutes and I would leave. And it's like, you know what? That's okay because I did it that day. I built the habit. At least I showed up. So you've got to find those small habits that are going to help you make the big ones. But as that big habit came, most days I stayed, right?
Nice. I guess that ties back in with earlier what you said of not beating yourself up, form the habit and just do what you can that day. And if it's not
Exactly.
much, at least you're doing it time after time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I guess this is actually a nice segue into what I wanted to talk about next in terms of motivation. So you personally had a lot of weight to lose, and with clients who have a significant amount, how do you stay motivated, especially when you put it in the context of, okay, it's not going to be a week or two's dieting, or trying to lose weight, it's going to be years.
Uh, Again, I always just come back to this is for life. So if I don't lose weight this week, if they don't lose weight this week, okay, there's the next week. Our bodies ebb and flow, especially women, right? And we aren't going to see movement all the time on the scale. So we have to recognize that and we just have to go. This isn't a diet. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I am staying as healthy as possible for life. So it's a life habit now. I don't need necessarily motivation to do that. So once you create the habit, you don't need the motivation to stay with it because it's not a diet anymore. I don't need to be motivated to brush my teeth, right? So why would I need to be motivated to stay healthy to as long as I'm enjoying it? It's when you need motivation when you aren't enjoying it or when you don't recognize the benefits of it. So I guess you need to start paying attention to why am I doing this? That's your motivation. Um, and it needs to be your why, not your family's why, not society's why. It's why do you want to be doing this? And surround yourself, we're coming back to it again, surround yourself with people that are going to motivate you, that you look up to, that that have already accomplished things that you appreciate. And whether that's just somebody that's uplifting, right? It doesn't have to be somebody who's reached any kind of a health goal. It can just be a positive person. And also focus and listen to podcasts like this, read magazines, read articles, watch YouTube people, videos that are going to encourage you, to motivate you.
I guess the why for people is really important, but I wonder how many people really know what their why is. Do you talk about this with clients? So, the reason I say that, I suspect a lot of people say that they want to lose weight and kind of know that they do, but I wonder how, because it requires quite a lot of empathy and also honesty with yourself in terms of like the real why. And there's a whole lot that goes on there, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And it does really take some self exploration. But if you never tap into that, I would venture to say you're not going to reach your goal. If it's just, I just want to lose 10 pounds to get into my jeans, that's okay. You can do that. Are you going to keep it off? I don't know. It's probably going to be challenging for you. But if your why is something deeper than that, you've got to make it something deep, or it's too hard, right? To stick with something you're not enjoying or something you don't recognize the benefits from. So yeah, you've really got to explore yourself and recognize what that deep why is.
Just a quick reminder, if you're finding this episode useful, then please do give it a quick review on whatever podcast platform you're using. It really means a heck of a lot, so thanks in advance. Now, back to the episode where I ask Cindy how to manage motivation when things aren't quite going to plan.
Yeah, that is it's a hard place to be. I sat at 100-pound weight loss for I think it was almost a year. Uh, but thankfully, I'm pretty determined, right? And so I'm just like, you know what? Okay, this is where I'm at. Okay. Um, I think you have to decide at that point. Again, you've got to dig deep, and you have to remind yourself of your why, and you have to be ready to make some other changes and recognize, okay, this isn't working now. What else can I do? What can I change? How can I accommodate? How can I shift? That's part of that flow I was talking about. We got to change something up here. Um, Maybe it's a different form of exercise. Maybe it's changing the macros a little bit, something to that effect. Maybe it's eating a little bit more for a period of time, and that can be scary for some people. But when it's for life, just like we were saying, one blown meal in a whole life isn't anything. So if it's 2 weeks of eating a few more calories for a little bit, or maybe it's a cup of fasting, all alternate day fasting for a week, something like that, just to shake things up. You've got to be willing to test and shift. And just because XYZ worked for this period of time doesn't mean XYZ is going to work for the next period of time. Our bodies are amazing and they adapt very well. And so we have to constantly be changing.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and it's seeing it for that bigger picture in the time frame is, and I guess going in with expectations of that, right, and
Yeah.
that it's not going to be immediate, and it might take some time, because people, if they have that from the start, it's probably a lot easier to ride the ups and downs than it is if you go in with this expectation that it's going to be linear and every week you're going to lose a pound or 2 pounds,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think expectations really, really hurt us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you do just have to go in with that perspective of, this is for life. And that's just what I tell my clients. If you're looking for 10 pounds to take off for summer, I'm probably not your girl. But if you're looking for healthy for life, then yeah, we can work.
Which is definitely the approach that I like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a big problem that people have, I think, is that they feel uncomfortable in their own skin. And there's a whole lot of emotion attached to weight, whether that's guilt, shame, so many things which kind of tie into that. How do you manage this with clients, and how do you essentially kind of talk to them about loving their bodies? Because there's a hard thing here in that they want to lose weight for whatever reason, but they aren't there yet. And I think that's quite difficult to say, well, you do have to love yourself for where you are now, while still trying to say, but it's okay to want to lose weight as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was right there, right? I mean, I didn't want to go into the gym. I was embarrassed of how I looked. I mean, we all have things about our bodies that we wish were different. So we just have to recognize that. And I think my attitude in the gym helps my clients because it's like, I don't care. I'm here to get healthy. You do your thing. I'm going to do my thing. Um, but I totally understand not feeling comfortable in your own skin. I think we have to find that place of gratitude. So I was grateful to be able to walk, right? I'm so grateful I'm not in a motorized scooter. So I don't care what my body looks like at this point. It's better than what it did look like, back in the day when I couldn't move off of the couch. So I think we have to find that gratitude. I'm grateful for my legs that carry me through life. Maybe they aren't as thin as I, whatever, wish they were, but they're working. They are a working part of my body that I need to take care of. I think when we focus on gratitude rather than, oh, I wish I looked like this, then we start to really take care of ourselves a lot better. And we start to feel more comfortable when we take care of ourselves.
Amazing. Cindy, I think that is a wonderful place to finish on as well, with a nice kind of motivational, warming way to look at it. So thank you for taking the time to come and speak with me. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, thanks for having me. They can find me at intentionallyeat.com.
Amazing. And I'll put it in the show notes. So if you're listening, go to your podcast, whichever platform you're listening on, and you'll be able to click the link. So, Cindy, thanks very much for coming on again.
Thanks, James. I appreciate it.